And here we are. Welcome back to the Redshirt Sophomore. We never sit out. We're your hosts, MD and CD. Today we're going to be talking college football playoffs, 12-team playoff. Yeah, because we're going to talk about 4 games today. The first year of the 12-man college football playoffs. We got some talking points. We got games. We got bets. We got a whole lot of analysis today. CD, what's going on, dude? I mean, we're in the middle of the bowl season. Right now, Memphis and West Virginia are dueling it out. A little bit back and forth. Memphis seems to be playing pretty well right now, as we maybe expected. That's gonna bite us in the ass. But anyways, CD, how we feeling, dude?
Fantastic. I mean, I can't believe the playoffs are here. We've been talking about these 12-man, home potential playoff games for seems like forever now, and here we are, week of. It's going to be really, really interesting to see how these home game dynamics go in these big time events. You've got big time environments, right? You're looking at these stadiums. You've got Texas and Longhorn Stadium there. You got Penn State, Ohio State, triple or six figure, like 100,000 plus stadiums there. And then you've got Notre Dame, which also it seats a lot as well. So it's actually really exciting to see all these big time stadiums, big time fan bases having these home playoff games, which will be really fun. You've got weather to talk about as well, right? And see how much that is really going to be a factor. The old adage that the Big Ten versus the SEC always love to argue, right? Like, come play football in December in Big Ten country. And you've got a couple teams like Tennessee traveling up north there. So it's going to be awesome. You got SMU traveling up to Penn State as well. So it's going to be crazy. I can't wait to get into it and hope you guys are enjoying it too.
Yeah, let's just get right into it then. First game we'll talk about. We're going to South Bend, Indiana, the Battle of Indiana. Notre Dame against Indiana, guys. Indiana's in the college football playoffs as an 8 seed. Uh, yeah, this is pretty crazy. So I mean, look, you got an Indiana team that they played their big game against Ohio State, and they lost, and they got handled. All right, there was a clear talent gap there for sure. But everyone else, for the people that say, "Oh, they don't deserve to beat it," they beat the absolute piss out of everyone. They beat the piss out of everyone, and it wasn't just who they beat; it was how that they won these games. Curtis Work looked good in 11 out of the 12 games that he played this year, or it might have been out one game. So what 10 out of whatever it was, he was a fantastic. These receivers have looked great. Surratt, these running backs, Lawton and
Ellison.
Ellison have looked fantastic this year. But on the flip side, Notre Dame, I mean, their schedule, I mean, something that we talked about as being one of the easier schedules in college football heading into the season. And our main talking point for that was because we believed that, oh, this is one it was more talking about because one of the easier schedules that they had in several years. Because generally they have a top 10, top 15 schedule. Right, generally they do
In the regular season, right? Not
in the
having
regular
to play a
season.
conference championship. This year, what made it so special was not having to play a ton of road games, right? They played three true road games, right? They won all three of them, so credit to them. Obviously, their only loss is to, one of the MAC or almost ex-MAC teams, right? Northern Illinois Huskies there in DeKalb. But so they went on the road to Cal Field early in week one. They got a win there at Texas A&M. Their other road games were at Purdue, who fired their head coach, and at what is that 6-6 USC, right? So it wasn't
Yeah,
a crazy gauntlet schedule, and here they are again hosting, right? So they're the home team here. They're gonna have a rowdy fan base, I'm sure. Notre Dame, people love to give them, hate for maybe having a quieter home field advantage than some teams that you would expect that are quote unquote blue bloods or some of the higher, profile teams in the country. But I have a feeling this will be a pretty rowdy environment.
it definitely will be. The thing is, it's like Notre Dame went in the transfer portal, okay, and they got what they believed was a difference maker at quarterback. And he's been good. Okay, I'm not going to knock Riley Leonard and his ability to make plays. Through the air if they need it. I don't know that I trust him to do that. Now this ground game has been they have just mauled people on the ground. All right, like these last like 8 games this season, they've just mauled people on the ground. The combination of Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price has been fantastic. Status of Jeremiah Love, I mean, his his lines are up on every book that I can tell. So feels like he's likely going to play and play at full strength. I don't know. Uh, and that is a big boost, obviously. And also credit Notre Dame's offensive line too. Something that was a huge question mark heading into the season. They've found a way to be a easily top 10 rushing attack in the country thus far. But again, strength of schedule is a question mark, and same with Indiana. And like you talked about that road environment versus the other teams. I mean, I'd rather play in South Bend than probably DKR or uh, the Shoe or at Penn State. I mean, I'd rather play at South Bend. Also, they don't got to travel very far. I mean, they got to travel a little bit, but in Indiana, I think Indiana's gonna be fired up for this game, man. I do think this line that we're picking out is 7.5 here. I think Notre Dame wins the ball game, but I do think Indiana covers this, and it also depends what Curtis Work are you going to get, right? Are you going to get the 2022 Curtis Work? Are you going to get the Indiana for the Indiana Curtis Work they had for 11 out of 12 games this year, or are you going to get the Curtis Work that's seeing ghosts when he sees one of the best defenses in the entire country on the other side of the field? Because that is what he's going to be staring at. Okay, but even then, Indiana's defense has held up, right? The talent gap at Ohio State, you did see that, but can they just stay within a touchdown, right? Can they stay within a touchdown? I don't know. I'm hoping so. I'm hoping so. I hope uh, for Indiana's sake that they don't just let Notre Dame lean all over them in the second half and kind of wear and tear them uh, to a win.
The nice part is both these teams did not have to play in conference championship games, so they are relatively
Mm-hmm.
fresh. It's been about 2-3 weeks since they've suited up, so you get to see some of those bumps and bruises kind of rest up there. You mentioned it right. If Notre Dame's going to win this football game handedly, it's going to be right probably on the backs of Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price. Those two running backs, they're probably the best tandem in the country potentially, right? With the way the Ohio State and the way the Penn State guys have been playing, honestly, I'll take Love and Price as well as Leonard. What he gives you with his legs has been awesome too. 5.8 yards per carry, 700 plus yards on the ground, 14 touchdowns. What he's so good at is those short yardage carries for them. And Notre Dame, I will say he did get a lot of flack early in the season in what he was doing throwing the football. It did get a lot better, and you saw it in numbers, you saw it in the film, a lot of things. I will say you look at the teams he's playing, especially those defenses, right? If you want to ask me who are the top four defenses that Notre Dame's played this year and Ryan Leonard has, two of them are from the MAC. And that's no slight to them. Northern
Yeah,
Illinois and Miami, Ohio are probably two of the top four defenses they have seen all year. It's going to be, I think, a step up here, not only coaching wise, schematically, but talent wise. You got some guys in Indiana who really love to get after the quarterback. They're obviously, Kamara and guys like that. They get a lot of hype. Carpenter as well in the interior. They really get after these guys. And plus, you've got some playmakers and Pons and Ashbury in the backfield, in the defensive backfield. So it's going to be very interesting to see. You mentioned it. How is Curtis Rourke going to be playing? I do think the best wide receiving group on this field by a significant margin, I think, is going to be Indiana. Elijah Surratt, Miles Price. You've got a lot Cross. You've got a lot of guys there that can get open. Plus, what Ellison and Lawton can do out of the backfield and give you a little extra juice there as well. Oh, it's going to be really,
they're
really
not that
interesting.
big of a drop off, I think, from Jeremiah Love and Jerry Price.
You think Ellison?
I think Love and Price are better than them, but I don't think it's like an insane drop off. I mean, think about they've been productive against everyone. They were productive against Ohio State generally,
Yeah, yeah.
even when they couldn't get anything through the air.
I will say I think there's a little bit more of a gap than you would think, but I'm with you here too. I've been flip flopping back and forth here. You could convince me either way. I think Notre Dame is going to win. I feel pretty certain about that, just because of being at home is such a big deal. I think in these games, and we'll talk about it more and more with every environment we get to, and more so about the other ones potentially. But I think Notre Dame will win. I will go Indiana plus 7.5, just because I think it might be a closer game. I don't know if Notre Dame has the dogs and the explosiveness to pull away from a team like Notre Dame. I also think too, you saw what Ohio State did offensively is their playmakers like made big time plays against Indiana, right? At times, I don't know if Notre Dame has the horses and the dogs to do it. Like Bo Collins, like he was a subpar ACC receiver for a long time there. Jaden Greathouse, very talented football player, but has we seen it consistently down in and down out? Mitchell Evans, one of the better tight ends in the country for sure. But we're talking about guys that can make difference making plays on third and fourth down, right? And in the red zone, too. Notre Dame's a team that's been pretty good in the red zone, right? They're 10th nationally, right? 75% of their red zone trips end up in touchdowns, which are so important in a game like this with the margins potentially being so small. So it could be really interesting as well as third down, all that stuff. But on third down, they're not very good. And I think some of that shows with maybe the liability that is Riley Leonard's right arm. They're 88th in the country, 88th in the country in third down conversions with that schedule, with those defenses they played. I do think that's a little bit alarming considering,
Correct.
right, who's a top 10 defense in third down is Indiana. And yes, you could say who have they played as well, but I think you also got to give them respect for getting off the field and making big time plays on those things. So it's going to be very intriguing, but that's where I'm kind of at with Indiana and Notre Dame in a close one.
Let's head over to Penn State, where they host SMU as 8.5 point favorites. Should Penn State be 8.5 point favorites? Now you got a road game. Here's what I think is the interesting part about this. It is the 11 a.m. game, right? You and I talked about this off air, CD. It is likely, statistically probable, that one of these underdogs wins a game. I think there's a real chance that it could be SMU. I think Kevin Jennings is a dog. I don't know that these receivers are necessarily elite, right? We've seen some of the talent that they've gone against this year. I don't think there's a lot of secondaries in the ACC that are particularly amazing, like we saw like last year. I thought there were a lot of great secondaries in the ACC last year. Not what I'm seeing in the ACC this year necessarily. But I do think Kevin Jennings is a dog. I do think Brashad Smith is a dog. I think what they have on defense, as much as I was a bit of a doubter on that defense, watching them generate, some lucky negative plays and what I thought was, turnover luck, they've consistently shown up, I think, in some big spots. Now against Clemson, Cade Klubnik did some awesome stuff in that game. And to put them down, and it was the best defense that SMU had probably faced all year, uh, at least since BYU, right? And it took him 3 quarters to get settled, but once Kevin Jennings was settled in, boy, was he something awesome. I think that
Yeah,
there's a real chance, right? Tyler Warren may be the best positional, like the best offensive player on the field at any given time, right? But Kevin Jennings, in terms of the positional value that he brings, I think it's greater than the value that Drew Allar brings to Penn State. I think it's greater than just about any other player on Penn State relative to their offense, aside from Tyler Warren. Even so, Tyler Warren is going to get like what 8 to 10 touches, 12, whatever. I think Kevin Jennings is pretty special, and it was this time last year that we were talking about like, is Kevin Jennings a real big drop off from Preston Stone? And then we watched that slosh pit at MetLife or whatever uh, against Boston College where Tom Castellanos did his thing. But I I just got a sneaky feeling here that I do think Penn State's defense is incredible. I think it's probably better than Clemson's. Um, I I think Carter's a problem. I think this SMU offensive line uh, has actually impressed me a little bit, but I do worry what they're going to do against a defensive line that they. It's. How, do you think this Penn State defensive line is that much better than Clemson's?
I think it's comparable, right? I think it is. Obviously, Abdul Carter is better than anybody else that Clemson
Correct.
trots out there. I think Denny Dennis Sutton is a freak in his own right. I love Zane Durant in the interior, what they do blitzing Kobe King and other guys on second level is very intriguing as well. With Tom Allen, the defense coordinator there, I do think you brought up SMU's offensive line. We talked about them in the offseason as bringing in a bunch of Power 5 guys and bodies that just brought in there and that they were going to plug and play, and all of a sudden it's actually worked out well. I think a bigger part of it too is Kevin Jennings like getting out of sack avoidances, and I think his mobility has been awesome and a revelation for SMU, and what he can do, extending plays obviously with his legs has been fantastic. He also had another 300 400 yards on the ground as well. Obviously Brashard Smith is the bell cow, right? 200 plus carries, over 150 more carries, more than anybody else, right, in the SMU backfield. So it's his show. It is his show, which it should be. He's very, very good. But it's going to be really interesting, right? You talked about it. I do think it'll be very interesting in terms of this home field advantage that Penn State's going to have. I think this will be an environment that SMU has not seen. These players have not seen, right? What University Park, what college, excuse me, what state college can look like when it is really, really going there up in for Penn State, and it's going to be a whiteout. I know it's 11 a.m. I know it's early-ish, but I still think they'll be ready to go. But the one concern I do have is if SMU, which they have done all year, if they stop the run, right, switching on the other side of the football, Penn State's got the ball. If you can't run the football consistently, who else other than Tyler Warren really scares you? Nobody. Nobody. And yes, Trey Wallace has been better this year than he was last year. Yes, Omari Evans had a nice touchdown grab in the Big Ten championship. But after that, you're looking at some walk-on guys. You're looking at Nick Singleton and Kay Allen out of the backfield. It is, dare I say, a one-trick pony, Tyler Warren, and then everybody else. So if you stop that run, and obviously easier said than done, and obviously easier said than done to just flat out guard Tyler Warren because he is a freak of nature in his own right. And they're actually they do a good job. Andy Kolnicki and that staff does a good job giving him creative ways to find the football because they do realize he is a monster, right? When he touches the ball, good things happen. He's averaging 12 yards per catch. He's also averaging 8.3 yards per carry on just about 2 a game on the ground. So they find interesting ways to get him the football. But you have no Bo Perbula, so you got to find other ways to manufacture different schematic looks that SMU has to be able to prepare for. It'll be interesting here. I do think Penn State will win. I do barely have SMU covering. I do think it might be a backdoor here, backdoor opportunity that Kevin Jennings, and similar what they did to Clemson, right, in that ACC championship game. Oh, man. I don't feel great about it, though, right, because Penn State's a team I just haven't been super impressed with all year. Even that Big Ten championship game, they just, yes, they made it close and they had a chance to tie it at the end there. But again, they also could have very easily gotten blown out in that game. I know it shows a lot about their fight and their talent to be able to stay in that football game. It's a very good football team. Too many times they just haven't blown out and finished football games that I've been waiting for them to do. And I think this could be another one there where you do get a backdoor cover or you do get a spot where you let SMU in the football game too long. But yeah, it'll be interesting. What say you?
I like SMU to cover, and I like them to win.
Oh, wow. So what needs to happen? Because obviously there's eight and a
You
half
have to
points that
stop
has
the
to be
run,
made up.
right?
Yes.
You have to stop the run. Which, by the way, if you're doubting SMU's ability to do that, I think that's a little silly. They've done that all year. All right, they've stopped the run. They've found ways to do it. All right, with the boys that they have up front. Not the most talented group, but they've found ways to get it done. All right, and also too, like people might look at like that. Oh, Penn State just put up 37 points on Oregon. Are we sure that Oregon's defense? Are we sure that it is a lock top 5, top 10 defense? Are we sure about that? I say no. How
They
can you
they
be
they
sure that
played
Oregon's
they played 3 playoff teams this year, right? Boise State, Penn State, and Ohio State, and they've given up 30 plus to all of them.
every single one?
And by the way, like yes, Genty's a stud in Boise State, I get that, but like again, right? It's a little different there. And then Ohio State not overly impressive at all against Michigan or even against Indiana in that game too. Penn State has had woes for sure, even against Ohio State. Remember that a couple weeks ago? So
Yeah. So just to assume, right? Just to assume
good
that
point.
Penn State's going to put up 30 plus points, I think is a little bit silly. They could. Absolutely, they could. Okay. But I do think here there are going to be a lot of SEC fans that are really pissed off when SMU finds a way to beat Penn State. And they'll spin it being like, oh, Bama would have done the same thing. Oh, Penn State, what a fraudulent team. Maybe, maybe. Or maybe SMU's like kind of good. Or maybe they're just good enough to win this game, a game like this, right? So
Well,
I like plus 8.5. I
I'll
like plus
give
eight and a
you
half. I like them to win.
I'll give
Here
you
we go.
some benefit here too in terms of how I think they do get a win here. I don't think they do, but in terms of if it were to happen, this is my obligatory Penn State Drew Alar right offensive big game third down conversation because we've done it every time against Ohio State and Michigan for the last 2-3 years now. It's been too much, right? And it's been an actual problem. Was a little bit better against Oregon, which was awesome. But the problem is that it's still something that I do have to talk about. So if you're a Penn State fan, I'm sorry you're going to hear this one more time. SMU getting off the field on third down defensively, top 17 in the country, right? At 32%. That's fantastic there. And then also, too, what Anna Koronecki does so well, we've been preaching this since he got there from Kansas this past offseason is, yes, Drew Allar will probably look better for sure, but I think a large part of it, too, will be due to the success that Penn State has running the football. And that has happened, right? They are 19th in the country in rushing offense. That is fantastic. But the thing is not only is SMU good at stopping the run, but something I love to look at here is 10 plus yard rushing plays allowed that SMU has given up, right? So their opponents, not letting their opponents rush for more than 10 yards in a single play, they're sixth in the country. And if you talk about sustaining drives, you talk about, getting ahead of the chains and really leaning on somebody at home, potentially with Penn State in their rushing game, like those plays, and you have to stop those if you're SMU. And they've done that all year long. It's going to be really, really interesting too. I do think turnovers has to be something that SMU has to win as well. They have a net zero of a turnover margin right on the year. That has to be a positive number for them, I think, in this football game to get some short fields, what red zone turnovers, whatever it may be. Oh, it's going to be fantastic. Selfishly, too, I'm a Big Ten guy, right? You see the Minnesota flag in the background there. Sorry for our Spotify listeners, but you can't see that. I want SMU to win. I think that'd be great for college football. If you've got one of these underdog, quote unquote G5, ACC schools, whatever it may be, getting a win here against, one of the better teams in the country that people say, I think it'd be awesome. I don't think it'll happen. I'm not going to, put my stake on it, but I think it'd be awesome. I think it also realistically absolutely can too.
Yeah, I think Drew Allar's, and people might think I'm like slandering Drew Allar when I say that Kevin Jennings I think elevates his team more than Drew Allar. I don't have any Drew Allar slander. In fact, I think Drew Allar will be a great quarterback prospect for the year 2026. But I just think that there are some things that can happen where SMU can win this football game. And if I'm going to pick one of these games to have an upset, it's going to be the 11 a.m. one, where a team that was playing in a conference championship game is going to another place, another team that played in a conference championship game as well. And I think spectacular quarterback play can win you college football playoff games. Let's go Clemson at Texas. This is the biggest spread of the first round, 11.5 points. When I'm looking at this, okay, and I think you can look at both teams for this, all right? You look at Clemson week 1, and you're like, oh boy, they got spanked by Georgia. Look at that, all right? They kind of bounced back. They had a bit of a brutal loss, later in the season, clawed their way to the ACC championship game, and found a way to win against SMU. That included a Cade Klubnik kind of masterclass. You got two guys, quarterbacks, Ewers and Klubnik, rematching from when they played back in high school. I don't think either of these quarterbacks are the best quarterbacks that are playing in this playoff right now, but I do think that these are both teams that are hungry for more because, one, this next game they know is winnable against Arizona State. And then after that, who knows what can happen. I think Texas, their defense more than anything has just absolutely blown me out of the water. Their secondary, which I've questioned for a while, has looked spectacular week in and week out. And it doesn't matter who's put in front of their face. And if Clemson's not able to run the ball, which they haven't been able to, and I said last week, I'm like, are they just going to push the Phil Maffa button against this SMU team? Which, by the way, we were just talking about SMU's run defense. SMU said no. So did Pitt, right? I mean, it hasn't been working on the ground for Clemson recently. Okay, Phil Maffa, as much as a great player I think he is, something's just not right now. Okay, something's not right there. If Cade Klubnik cannot throw the ball on this Texas secondary, then what is this offense going to do? That's my question. Will Quinn Ewers be able to effectively move the ball down the field against Clemson's defense? I don't know that can happen either. All right. But I think I like Texas in this spot. I think I like Texas to win. I also think Texas has a chance of covering in this spot too.
Listen, I hear what you're saying, and I really do. And maybe it's just my affection for Clemson because I've had him for most of this year. I had him as an ACC future, which cash, thank you to Miami and Syracuse. But I, I don't know here. I'm gonna take Clemson here in this spot to cover, and I'll take them to win. And here's why: because I need one upset in this week because there's gonna be one out of four I think is gonna be. And I think Texas is super vulnerable right now.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, I see all the metrics defensively. I get that. And I know that talent wise, you see it on the eye test, all that stuff. And they look fantastic. They're huge. They're athletic, very well coached. All that stuff makes a ton of sense. I just think that this Clemson wide receiver core is significantly better than anything Texas has seen all year. That goes back to Oklahoma when they were decimated, Michigan, and whatever the heck they've tried it out all year long at the wide receiver position. Georgia, a position group we've talked about being a liability on that football team. Florida with a decimated quarterback room. Arkansas,
And no
with all that
Eugene
stuff going
Wilson.
on. No, yeah, exactly. Texas A&M, right, with some I think liabilities there in that wide receiver and potential quarterback in terms of throwing the football room. I think it'll be not a shell shock, but I think it's going to be something that you could see this defense, maybe come back down to earth just a little bit compared to what it's been because metrically it is fantastic, right? They're top against the passing defense. They're second in scoring defense. They're second in allowing 10 plus yard scrimmage plays. They're seventh in red zone touchdown allowed. They're sixth on the third down. They're really freaking good, right? And I'm not going to take that away from them. I do think this Clemson team, like sometimes you see good offense beat good defense, right? And you saw flashes of it from Clemson's wide receiver core, the young kids, TJ Moore, Brian Wesco, Antonio Williams after the catch. Like you've seen these guys get better and better throughout the season. Kate Klubnik get more and more comfortable as he's progressing through year two of this Garrett Riley system. And plus their offensive line, you talked about Phil Maffa struggling on the ground in November. A lot of that too was their offensive line kind of banged up, shuffling products in and out there. They're getting them back healthy. They got them back healthy for South Carolina. SMU maybe just has a really good run defense. Right? I do think you'll see a little bit more production there with Phil Maffa because you're going to need to. Right? Going on the road to Austin, unless you want to have a defensive performance like Clemson, like Georgia did earlier, where you just absolutely get after Quentin Ewers, you stop the run, you have all these turnovers, and you win by 2 touchdowns somehow. I don't quite see that happening for Clemson. I think you're going to have to outscore Texas a chance here. I also do think that Quinn Ewers and Texas, right, they're not great running the football. And I know Clemson's defense and running the football has not been great this year. I do think they've been banged up. I think the talent is still there in that front seven. I trust Dabo Sweeney and staff to get them ready. I think they have a couple good quarters throughout Terrell and Hunters to, kind of be able to stifle, right, those maybe not elite wide receivers that Texas has. I also want to ask you this too here. In terms of the SEC, right? Like, how much better do you think Texas is compared to South Carolina? Right, the way South Carolina finished the season.
Oh, I think South Carolina. I would take South Carolina in that football game.
So you saw Clemson. It arguably should have very easily could have beaten that South Carolina football team just a couple weeks ago. I think it's something to monitor. I think it absolutely is. This game, I think people are kind of writing off. They see that double-digit spread. They're like, oh, this is Dabo Sweeney, blah, blah, blah. They're washed. The program's over, blah, blah. This is a different team. They've college football has passed them. I think this is a spot here where you could see Clemson come out really motivated. And we realize there's still a ton of talent on this football team. They just haven't put it all together. At times, they've been injured, all that good stuff. And by the way, Clemson just took a transfer wide receiver. So big things are happening.
JUCO, so
Big
it's not
things are
actually a
happening.
transfer. It was JUCO. All right, so
What at mid-season? It's a big deal, I think, for Clemson. No, I just wanted to get that in there. But and maybe I'm talking myself into it because I think there's going to be an upset, and I don't love the way Texas is playing football or have played football, but I just think this is a spot here that Clemson's going to be a lot more competitive than people think.
yeah, 11.5 is a ton of points. Not on my best bets at all. And I will play into your idea that Texas doesn't necessarily run the ball as effectively as people think. I want to go back to the Texas A&M game where Wisner ran all over at A&M.
broke
But
the
I also
tackles.
want you to point in the direction of Texas A&M against South Carolina, against Notre Dame, right? Uh, Other teams that are physical, right, had a lot of success against that Texas A&M defensive line and linebacking core. Not to mention those DBs are pretty terrible attacking. All right, so I don't think it's crazy to think that Texas is not as effective at running the ball as maybe the metrics say. Because what are they? They're averaging like almost 5 yards a carry on the ground, which is like pretty good. Okay, but it might even be worse than that, right? Like realistically. So that's not crazy. That's not crazy. I do think Texas's defense though is legit. I know you could point at the backup quarterback they played against Florida, Texas A&M, Carson Beck maybe not playing great, getting to play another backup quarterback, which Texas for some reason gets to play backup quarterbacks, at least four of them every single year. Um, a banged up Taylor Green. I mean, you name it,
Davis
right?
Warren.
Davis
Michael
Warren,
Hawkins,
Michael Hawkins, right? Like, yeah, you name. They
Brock
didn't.
Vandegrift.
I get it. Right? I get it.
Oh,
But it does feel like this defense is kind of for real, and I'm willing to bet that they will make Clemson one dimensional, where Cade Klubnik is going to have to make plays through the air. And I know, and this was something that you were right about preseason, and I was wrong about preseason. This wide receiving core is good for Clemson, but is it enough? I don't know.
yes.
Do we trust Cade Klubnik through the air enough against elite secondaries? I don't
Yeah,
know that
I'll,
I do.
I'll say this here. I don't want Cade Klubnik to be throwing the football a ton, right? I I think the ideal game plan is for him to be running the football. He averages about 34 attempts per game. I don't want him any higher than that. I really don't. I want to be able, if I'm Clemson, to run the football a little bit more effectively and be able to churn out clock, be able to control the possession, get third and manageable. Because, on third down, right? I know Clemson's been, or excuse me, I know Texas has been really good defensively, but Clemson is still a top 25 team on third down, right? And they're getting completing at a 45% clip there, something to monitor for sure. I do think red zone has to play a huge deal for Clemson. They're not very good at converting. They're about middle of the pack in red zone touchdown percentage, turning those red zone opportunities into 7 instead of 3 or 0. Right, those are big spots too. And going over to turnovers too. I know it's hard to predict, but Clemson, second in the country, they are plus 16 turnover margin. I know that's very volatile. I know that's honestly not something that I can very count on, right? But I do think it says something about how you take care of the football at times and how you're opportunistic too, and putting other spots, putting offenses into vulnerable positions. Those are going to have to need to happen. We talked about with SMU as well. Third down, red zone, turnover margin, winning those kind of key areas in these games gives you a spot to make up all those grounds, to make up the spot for maybe a little bit more talented football team than yourself, and going on the road as well. Yeah, I think this will be very interesting too.
I'll say
Do you
this
think?
about Cade Klubnik. I think he's had a great year, but he's had one game this year where he's thrown for over 250 yards against a top 50 defense. And I was against South Carolina, where he threw no touchdowns and an interception.
Do you think Cade Klubnik is a better quarterback than Quinn Ewers?
That's a really, really good question. And I don't think there's an easy answer,
I see.
believe it or not.
I don't think it's an easy answer. I think in order to believe that Clemson is going to win this football game, I
You have to
have to
believe that he's
believe that
better.
Cade Klubnik is better than Quinn Ewers. Exactly. I have to believe that we're going to get the Quinn Ewers that we saw against Georgia, that we saw at times against Texas A&M. Right. That's who we're going to have to get.
SMU.
SMU. Wait, they play SMU? Oh no, the Cade Klubnik against SMU. Yes, exactly. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
I meant to say Quinn Ewers. We cannot get Quinn Ewers against Washington. We cannot get Quinn Ewers against Alabama a couple times now. Like those Quinn Ewers, right? If they keep him upright, he's got time to dissect, and Sark has time to draw plays up. That's where you can get in real problems for Clemson, for Texas in general. If that Quinn Ewers is playing the rest of the way, this is probably the best team in the country, right? But I just think that offense really scares me for Texas, and I can't believe I'm saying that against Sark. And I can't wait to eat my words because that's probably going to happen. They're going to put it forward against Clemson, but I don't know. I think there's something going on there in Death Valley, over in Clemson, South Carolina.
Tennessee's traveling to Ohio State in the shoe. This spread's 7.5. Man, Ohio State is coming off of a embarrassing loss as a 20-point favorite to a Michigan team on at home. I believe. I mean, what are we doing? And this spread 7.5. Well, guess what? This Ohio State team is still, in my opinion, the most talented team in the country. They just have kind of pissed down their legs a couple times. You look at the Oregon game late, they had a chance to win that game. They really did. They probably could have and should have won that game. They just didn't. All right, credit to Oregon there. Oh, by the way, they had to go to Eugene to do that. And then in a rivalry game, you had a stinker. All right, which by the way gave you essentially a bye, which was pretty nice. I don't know.
Instead of
Just
having a first round bye. Yeah, yeah, exactly,
you
exactly.
basically, well, I guess yeah. Instead of having a
You
first
get
round
stuck
bye.
playing the 9 seed instead of playing probably the 12 or the 11 seed, right? So,
Yep.
you know,
But I I like Ohio State in this spot. I'm sorry. Their defense has been kind of wishy washy for me all year, as elite as they are. Right. I just don't think Nico's got it, man. This year, maybe next year. Like it, the first couple of games, right? You look at that out of conference slate, and of course, it was a garbage out of conference slate. All right, we talked about NC State being maybe the worst, one of the worst teams in the ACC, and that ended up coming to fruition, right? Especially that on the defensive side of the football. Uh, yeah, they decimated some teams out of conference that were really bad, right? You get two conference play, and this Nico doesn't have in these last two seasons. We've talked about how good is this wide receiver room going to be. Oh my gosh, it's got all the pieces. They've got names. They've got speed. It's been very underwhelming. Dylan Sampson has been the key here for this Tennessee team all season long. And teams have been able to run against Ohio State some, right? Oregon found a way to do it with Jordan James. Okay, they found a way to do it. If Tennessee can find a way to do that with Dylan Sampson, I can see them being in this game. Absolutely. But I like Will Howard in this bounce back spot. I think he's gonna play well. I really do. I know this Tennessee defense is really good, especially from a pass rushing perspective. Where at the tackle spot for Ohio State, you've had issues. You've had issues. But if Chip Kelly and Ryan Day know what's good for them, they are going to find a way to freaking run the football. All right, in the month of December, they're going to do it. Make Tennessee come up there and stop two of the best running backs in college football. You have to find a way to do it. And if they do, I think Ohio State wins and covers 7.5. Absolutely. I think there are a lot of situations though where this game is really close late, and maybe Will Howard makes a mistake. Maybe there's an explosive play. Maybe there's a big sack. Maybe there's a special teams blunder somewhere. There could be a scenario where Tennessee wins this football game, but I'll pick them to win and cover the 7.5.
yeah, I'm with you here on Ohio State. I also think Tennessee's, you mentioned the wide receiver room, injuries are an actual concern, right? Squirrel White, is he healthy? Brew McCoy, Dante Thornton, guys like that. Are they going to be healthy? You've seen them being banged up in practice. You've seen them not being at full strength, right? You hope you get them back. You obviously still have Chris Brazell. You've got the freshmen there, Mike Matthews and Braylon Staley. Are they ready to contribute? The problem is there's a couple ways to beat Ohio State, right? You can either just, for whatever reason, what Michigan does is out physical them, right? Or you can have big time wide receiver play. You saw guys over in Oregon in Eugene there. You saw Evan Stewart. You saw Tez Johnson make big time plays against contested catches, beat man coverage against some really good corners, a really good secondary, and have some kind of line to be able to hold up and protect against those edge rushers there. Obviously, Jack Sawyer, got a lot of publicity for his Michigan after the game shenanigans. He's a really good football player, right? He is a really good football player on that football team. A guy I'd love to have on my team, damn, because he's really, really good. You mentioned it, though. It is Dylan Sampson, Dylan Sampson, Dylan Sampson for Tennessee. The irony is people forget just a couple years ago, right? Or maybe you haven't forgotten. That's all you think of when you think of Tennessee and Josh Heupel is this up tempo spread, wide splits offense, kind of gimmicky. You're throwing the football everywhere. But the past 2 years, and especially this year, you've had really good defensive play, and you've had an elite running back play. Dylan Sampson is the best running back in the SEC, maybe the third or second best running back in all of college football. I don't think that's hyperbole to say at all. He has been fantastic. Is that
Sorry,
crazy?
I'll say third.
Who's second?
Scatterboo.
Dean Connors. Oh yeah, Scatterboo. Yeah,
Dean
that's not
Connors
crazy.
is way up there. Dean
Bro,
Connors is way up there. From
no,
hey,
yeah.
that guy
No,
catches
no.
passes out of the backfield. Come on.
Thank you for that. Yeah. I'll say third because Scatterboo's awesome. But yeah, I'm with you. I think Ohio State too, in terms of how about the other side of the football, right? What Tennessee defensively has done has been fantastic. Metrically, they are awesome, right? You look at them, their eighth rushing defense, right? They're seventh in passing, they're fourth in scoring. A lot of good things there. The fifth in getting off the field, fifth in the country, getting off the field on third down, less than 30% conversion rate for that team is fantastic. Borderline elite, right? Really, really elite. Look at their schedule though, and you want to tell me which wide receiver cores like really scare you on this schedule, right? And you kind of got to go all the way back to Alabama and a young Ryan Williams. You got Jeremy Bernard, and honestly a banged up and just shell of himself Jalen Monroe, who could not take advantage of that at all. Who had open receivers down the field and you just missed them at times. I think it'll be a significant step up here. Jeremiah Smith, obviously. Emeka Buka, former 5-star kid, really, really good. You got a couple 5-stars there. Carnell Tate, Brandon Innes, G. Scott, the tight end, the two running backs out of the pack. A lot of weapons here. You said Chip Kelly, Ryan Day. These guys have to come up with a game plan that lets them run the football and also take advantage of, I think a matchup-wise positive you have in your wide receiver core, and let Will Howard sit back there, hopefully healthy, and get after him and not get in spots where James Pierce and other guys on the Tennessee front can get after you, and you can cause turnovers. You can get off the field on third down. A lot of bad things can happen there. Plus, two, apparently, and I'm just going to bring it up shortly here. Apparently, there's going to be a good amount of Tennessee fans in the stadium.
Yeah, no, that's the word on the street right there. Some AD dropped the absolute ball on that one. Wonder what AD that could have been.
What AD?
I don't know what AD that could have been, but I think playing on the road, yeah, we like our new guy now. But anyways, I do think penalties have been an issue a little bit for Tennessee, and I think going on the road, granted, while you'll have, I guess, a large number of your fans there, it's still a problem.
Yeah,
all right, and
it'll be a minority for sure.
Yeah, and I don't know what the weather's going to be like in Columbus. I feel like it
cold.
Maybe it hasn't been that bad. It's going to be really cold.
It would be below 30. So cold.
Ooh, it's hot.
But in Knoxville, like Knoxville's far enough north.
Yeah,
it's not like you're coming from Florida or you're coming
No.
from Tuscaloosa or Austin.
But sub 30 is a big deal there still.
Yeah, and it almost plays into, honestly, Tennessee's style where they can pound the rock, right? But I think Ohio State also prides itself on physicality too. What they can do defensively.
Yeah.
The two
Well, we'll
running
see what
backs.
Jeremiah Smith looks like in sub 30-degree weather as well. Florida kid.
Well, I mean, I guess he played in a cold weather game in Columbus, right? Against Michigan. And
Well, I guess so. And yeah,
it's a learning experience, right?
for sure. But so you're on it. Ohio State with me minus 7.5.
Yeah, I feel pretty darn good about that, and we'll talk about that when we get to our best bets. I also don't think, I think Tennessee gonna struggle to score. I think Ohio State, it's basically first team to 20 here. If you're Ohio State,
Yeah, that's 20, not crazy.
And I think you feel pretty good about it.
Vegas would agree with you. Tennessee's team totals at 19.5. So first one to 20.
Remember that number because that could be an important one later on.
That could be an important one.
Oh, real quick. So, is there a scenario where Nico, let's say he's just been playing how he's been playing, right? And when I say that, I mean they are 62nd in the country in passing offense. They are 73rd in explosive pass play rate, right? When I say explosive, I mean 10 plus yards or more, right? I know people define explosive other ways. 10 plus plays or more through the air, they're 73rd, right? If Nico plays at a middle of the pack quarterback level, can Tennessee still win?
Yeah.
And how?
Well,
do they need a lot of turnovers or
playing up? Not. It would just be playing to the level that they can play on the defensive side of the football. Okay. Like if Nico plays middle of the pack, like you have his standard, his bell curve of outcomes, right? And he plays at his mean, right? I think Tennessee can still win this game. It would require 130 yards from Dylan Sampson because that's his mean, right? At least you need at least 130 yards from Dylan Sampson, and then you would also need your defense to step up. I don't know that you need turnovers, maybe big third down stops, right? Like I don't know. I'm just saying. I mean, Ohio State's not perfect on third down. By the way, they're not perfect on third down, and Tennessee happens to be really, really good on third down. If you don't run the ball effectively on those first two downs, Tennessee is going to let the dogs go on third down and that's when you could see some trouble for sure. So I think Tennessee can win this game if Nico plays a mediocre game. I think if he plays a fantastic game, I think Tennessee probably wins this game. But I'm not. I'm not counting on that. With that being said, that's the first round of the college football playoffs. Let's get to the counter now. You know what we've talked about. You know our picks, I guess, on these games. But what are our bets? What are we throwing hard earned cash on the season? I haven't been so great. Okay, right now, well, pending Memphis, because I can't chalk that up yet. I'm 42 and 41. Please 43 and 41 if Memphis hangs on here. Uh, down about 2 units. CD is 31 and 30, 41 and 36 on the year, up 1.31 units. So pretty good, not bad. We're not professional handicappers. We're just having fun with this thing. But we like to think that we're giving out pretty decent bets. So for me, I'll start here. I'll go SMU plus 8.5. I talked about earlier. I think that they can straight up win this football game. I'm not going to elaborate a ton, but just know that I think the ceiling of Kevin Jennings is higher than the ceiling of Drew Allard. Now, Drew Allard's floor might be a little bit higher than Kevin Jennings, but the backdoor covers in play, right? You're looking at an 11 a.m. game, right? It's not a night game over there. It's an 11 a.m. game. Okay. I do think SMU's run defense has been severely underrated this year. They've been opportunistic on the defensive side of the football. Uh, I, I do think that this SMU team can win this football game, and I'll take the 8.5 points. I'll gobble them up. No problem. Let's go. Oh, CD, you're muted.
Yikes! Yes, I am muted. You'd think I'd be better by now in the season, but no. Yeah, I don't hate that at all for you. I'm gonna go over to Friday night. Right, this will be Indiana at Notre Dame. I think it'll be a low scoring game, specifically under 51 and a half. Right, I'm hoping. I look back at that Indiana Ohio State game, and that game you had a special teams touchdown. You had a late touchdown. Remember, Ohio State and Ryan Day had that last touchdown to punch it in there. And I think you have a spot here where you see teams kind of bleed it out. I think it's going to be cold weather. I think if Notre Dame, in their ideal world where they win this football game, it's going to be significantly under 51. So that's where I'm going to be at 51 and a half under.
Yeah, no, that's not crazy. I certainly thought about it. Well, I think I thought about totals in other games, but if I was taking total, it'd probably be the under 51.5 in that game. I'll stay in that same game. Give me Indiana first half plus 4.5, baby. How about Indiana on their scripted drive? They go down, score a touchdown like Indiana loves doing, and then you just hang on and only give up 10 points in that first half. How about that? And then let Notre Dame lean on you in the full game, right, and cover that whatever number, 7.5. Just give me plus 4.5 in the first half. How about that?
I don't hate it at all. We didn't talk about that, but I wonder. I would like to go into that coaching matchups there. I mean, you got Tino Sincere leaving for UCLA, but
Yeah.
it's gonna. That's a really good coaching staff over there in Indiana. I know there's some good coordinators at Notre Dame as well, but it's a really good coaching staff. I don't hate that for you at all. That first opening drive, scripted play, all that good stuff. I'm gonna go over to Columbus here. This will be the nightcap on Saturday. Tennessee at Ohio State. Give me Ohio State minus 7.5 just in that game, fourth quarter. Listen, I just don't know if Tennessee's that elite. And I think Ohio State has a chance where they play really pissed off. I think they can hit that number in a variety of ways. I think they can hit it by scoring 30 plus. I think they can hit it by scoring 25 points, 24 points. So I think it's a spot where I feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, I don't hate that for you at all. We just talked about it. I I picked them in my picks, right? Not a best bet for me though. I'm done. I debated taking Clemson under 19 and a half team total. Just couldn't do it. Just couldn't do it. I think Quinn Ewers turnovers could have something to say about that. But yeah, do you have one more play?
Yeah, I'm gonna do it.
Whether
I'll
it,
go Tennessee under 19 and a half
let's go.
team total here. Listen, I said it earlier. I don't know how good Nico's going to be in this game on the road. By the way, cold weather, a kid from right California, maybe not loving the idea of playing under 30-degree weather. I think there's a good chance that Ohio State really comes out ready to go. Remember, defense has really not been their problem all year. Maybe in that Oregon game, but I think there's a big difference between the skill possessions that Oregon has and the quarterback play that Oregon had in that game. Plus, home field advantage played a big part in that. I don't think Tennessee, even if they are healthy, has the wide receivers to get after Ohio State's DB room. So, yeah, give me Tennessee under 19 and a half.
I like it a lot. We talked about it. Like, I don't think you're gonna get Nico's best game here. I don't think so. So, I guess something that would help you in this situation is if, like we talked about, if Ohio State actually decides to run the ball and run the ball effectively against this defense, which I don't know that they will, but if they try to, yeah, absolutely. Tennessee early in this game trying to establish the ground game might help you a little bit there. And if they're not able to the way that they want to, then that's an issue for Tennessee's offense and the ability to score 19 and a half points for sure. So I like that. Some cold weather football games, unders in cold weather football games against really competitive teams. I like that. I like that. Well, that's going to do it for us. College football playoffs round one previews, 4 games. It's going to be awesome, man. I'm really excited. I've been skeptical of the 12-team playoff and, been skeptical of the college football playoff committee, selection committee, and what they do over there. But it's here, and there are 4 games that we have a lot of reason to be excited for. So Uh, let's keep that thing rolling as we keep continuing to cover bowl games. So make sure if y'all like the content, like the video, it's a simple rule that we have over here. If you want to see more content like this, as well as the rest of our bowl season coverage for your office bowl pools, that water cooler talk. Oh, hey, do you know that Caden Veldkamp's playing in the game? Yeah, we knew that here. Okay, and you would know that too if you're sticking around. So make sure you're sticking around, hitting that subscribe button, just hanging out with us on YouTube. If you're a Spotify listener, a follow and a 5-star rating would do just the same. So thank you so much. We haven't forgot about you guys. So thank you so much. Sadie, anything for us on the way out? Y'all, the mute button's just killer today. Just
That's
killer
twice
mute
in like
button.
4 minutes. What am I doing? No, like you said it all. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoy it. We are finally here at the playoffs. Obviously, a lot else is going on other than the playoffs, but this is a big deal. I love the home environment. I'll be very anxious to see how it goes with all these teams and all that good stuff. So obviously, we'll be having a lot to say with the playoffs and the bowl season, transfer portal, coaching carousel, a lot of stuff going on right now at the Redshirt Sophomore. So make sure you are tuned in.
Alrighty. We'll see y'all in the next one.